Hello, and welcome to Haunted Hotline with Katie Santry. When I say you are in for a treat today, oh baby, do I mean it! I'm sorry if I don't sound like myself. I have a bit of a hoarse voice. I think it's like a little bit sexy, right? But I'm getting sick. It doesn't feel as sexy as it sounds, but it is appropriate for a spooky podcast. Today, we are going to have a spook-fucking-tastic conversation with one of the creepiest, spookiest guys. He's not creepy, but what he does for a living is. We've got our very own ghost hunter and ghost tour guide here to tell us all of his best stories. Not only is he going to give us his professional experiences, but he's got some personal stories for us too. And when I tell you, my jaw dropped so many times and my body was full body chilling from beginning to end. I mean it. This is a good one. It's a little bit longer than usual, but it is worth every second of listen. I hope you guys love this as much as I did. So we have Bucky from Columbus Ghost Tours, and he is going to tell us all of his best spooky, scary, nightmare. I don't know. I'm just as excited as you all are to hear all these stories.
Okay, thanks for having me, Kate.
I'm so excited. First question that I have to ask is, did you ever hear about the buried rug in my yard?
Yes, I did.
You did?
Yes,
Okay.
I did. Yeah. It was during a very busy time of year for me, so I didn't really get to get fully invested in it, but I did catch the gist, and I was quite intrigued by how...
So in your professional opinion, what did you think was happening?
I assumed that somebody had been murdered and buried in your
Did
backyard.
you?
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people thought. That's even what people were hoping for.
Yeah.
It all happened because I thought there was a ghost in my house.
Yes, yeah.
So, I mean, I will get your professional opinion on this because this is what I have learned through Googling and talking to other people. So, the day that my laptop had shattered, my stepson's phone had been plugged into the charger, and overnight, it was 100% when he went to bed, still on the charger, and this has only happened this one time. It's never happened again. And then when he woke up the next morning, his phone was dead, still on the charger. And so a lot of people told me that ghosts can take energy.
Yes.
And my laptop was shattered. The screen was donezo.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting because, I mean, in ghost hunting... in the world of paranormal research, a lot of times we use electromagnetic EMF readers that they detect fluctuations because many people believe that spirits will use that energy to manifest themselves. So having a phone drain, a laptop shatter,
Yeah, it was so crazy. And then it was the same day that my neighbor who had died in her house, I don't know if you saw when you pulled up, the house is boarded up.
Oh, yeah.
So that's Margaret's house. Okay. And her house was boarded up the day that my computer broke. So it was like a whole weird series of events.
Yeah, the timing of it. Yeah, that's
it was funky.
It's always interesting when when things work out like that.
Yeah, and then when the psychic was here, we talked to Margaret. So we used a bell. Have you ever used that in your ghost hunting?
No, I'm familiar, but I've never used one. Yeah.
So we had the bell, and we were set up right here, and we asked her if she broke the computer, and she dinged that bell so quick. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's really wild how fast you can get those responses and how strong they can be.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people are not prepared for that.
No, I can tell you when that bell danged for the first time, dinged, it was horrifying. Like I did not think it would really work.
Yeah. How'd you sleep that night?
Oh, I slept with my door open with the lights on because I was home alone.
Yeah.
And I was terrified.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. It's all fun and games until it's in your house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's actually what this bell here is in remembrance of. It's not the real one, but that's why we have it here, just to remember Margaret always.
Well, hopefully you don't hear it going off one night.
No, I have yet to, thank God.
Is it glued?
Yeah, I really should have just in case. Yeah. So obviously, how long have you been doing these ghost tours for?
For 13 years. So,
wow.
We started in 2012. It was originally a friend suggested that I host a ghost tour, and I had a little free time, so I had a friend's mother who was a seamstress. She stitched this red satin devil suit for me.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just going to be friends. And we went, rented a van and took people to different locations. And everywhere we went, people were asking, hey, how can I sign up for this? It looks like a blast. So it was sort of organic. The business found me,
That's so cool because it was just your passion.
Yeah.
What is your earliest spooky memory?
So, whenever I was a really small child, my great-grandparents had died, and my mother got a photograph that was of a woman, and it was from the 1800s, you
Okay.
know, and she had no idea who it was. And she was telling a friend about this, and I was probably around 4 years old. And I told my mother, well, that's Sarah. She used to babysit me. And my mother started doing some genealogical research and found out this woman's name was Sarah. She was an ancestor. And so that was kind of a something that
Oh
yeah,
my God.
had a little bit of that ghost inside the child thing going on. But yeah, one of the strongest strange experiences I had whenever I was early teen. My parents built a house out in the country,
Okay.
and there was this nice old man who lived next door, and he would mow our lawn and watch the property whenever we were away and stuff. And he became a family friend. He would have dinner with us at night, and you know all that. Well, one day it was a very hot day in August. My mother noticed that he didn't get up and crack his windows because that's what people did back in the 80s
Right,
if it was
right.
hot, so they wouldn't explode. and I just said, "Oh, that's stupid. You know, big deal. He didn't crack his windows." And she's like, "No, he might be down there dead." And I said, "Oh, let me go check." So
You're like, in that
yeah,
case.
yeah. So I ran down to his house, and I could hear his TV playing very loudly, but he wasn't answering the door. And I opened the door and found him dead, laying in front of the refrigerator.
Oh my God.
He was blue. He had his hands kind of held tight over his chest.
Did you freak out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then my parents bought the house and let me move in there as a teenager, so I had a little bit of independence before going to college.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, strange things started happening. Friends would get locked in the bathroom all the time, which was just sort of weird. And then one day, it was a very hot day in August. I was laying on a couch, and I noticed this mist beginning to form.
Oh my God.
And I couldn't really work it out. I thought maybe I was laying on the couch. I thought, is there an air conditioning vent at the end of the couch and on the floor? And
You're trying to like rationalize.
yeah, and I
it
was
in
like,
your head.
maybe it's condensation or
Right,
something.
right.
But it moved like cigarette smoke, but slower, and it was thicker.
Oh my God.
And I realized I couldn't get any sense of depth with it. I didn't know exactly where it was in space, so I lifted my leg, and it rose up and fell down, and I realized it was hovering over me. And and
No, thank
still,
you.
at the same time, I was so confounded by what it was, and my brain was just racing trying to figure it out, and
Yeah.
it dissipated. And it was only after that I thought, oh my God, I think I just saw a ghost, you know. And
Is this the first time that you had ever seen one?
that would be the first time I'd ever
Okay.
had a direct
Like a physical
yeah, a
contact.
visual encounter. But another strange thing started happening. I had a old clock radio that played cassette tapes, and I would always listen to cassette tapes in the morning when I was getting ready for school. And when I come home from school at night, my mother would yell at me because she said I left the radio on full blast so loud she could hear it in her house.
Oh my gosh.
And I never listened to the radio. I only listened to cassette tapes.
Yeah.
And we thought someone was breaking into the house during the day. But the final experience I had there was one morning I got up to take a shower to get ready for school. And when I slid the shower door open, across from me was the mirror for the vanity.
Okay.
And "Hello, Bucky" was written in the steam, and it was still dripping. So it was fresh, yeah. And that was one of the more shocking experiences I ever had.
Did you like shit your pants? In this moment?
Close. I was pretty shaken by that. So that was. I mean, it was 6 in the morning. I lived out in the country. You know, no friends could have snuck in, and
My
you
whole
know.
body has goosebumps right now.
Yeah. That was a pretty chilling experience.
Oh
So, yeah.
my God. So did you ever like talk to him by name? Like, hey.
I didn't.
Frank,
Not then. As a teenager, no. I didn't really
Oh.
didn't have the wherewithal, or didn't want to call him out. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard a couple stories of one couple that found out that someone had passed away in the house, and they were having all these weird things happen, and then they started calling him out by name, and everything just exploded. It got
Yeah.
so much worse because they were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you want me here?"
Once
they
they're
would
recognized,
come in and
yeah.
sit next to them on the couch, and the couch would go down, and crazy stuff was happening once they
Yeah.
started talking to them by name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's That's it was something as a teenager. I sort of I did like the head in the sand kind of with
I
it.
would be scared to get out of the shower every time ever
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah, it was it only happened once, but it was it was shocking.
That's
Yeah.
that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I would
Yeah,
die.
yeah, I couldn't. I couldn't.
I'd be haunting that house right next to him. Like, I
Yeah.
would be gone. It's horrifying.
Dead and haunting. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
it
God.
was-
Okay, so this happens all as a teenager.
yeah, that happened as a teenager.
And then fast forward now, you're running haunted tours. So, like, what's the in between that gets you into what your passion and livelihood became.
Okay, so I, as a teenager, I always worked in restaurants. People from restaurants and bars all over the city were telling me their stories, and I just, ended up being in a particular niche where I was able to collect these stories from across downtown Columbus.
So what do you think is the most haunted place, A, like in Ohio or Columbus, or B, like that you've been to?
Well, the most active place I'd say in Columbus from our years of tours is the Boathouse at Confluence Park, which is no longer open to the public. Really, it's just a private event space. But that particular building, it was built in 1986, so it's much more modern than any other places we go. But the land has a bit of history there. So there used to be a cemetery there. There was a poorhouse, and there was a naval base, and then in 1986, the boathouse. And there seems to be ghosts from all different periods of that land's use, and it's really something else. It is. It's a lot. It's one place where a lot of our tour guests who were complete skeptics had their first encounter with the paranormal.
Okay. So explain to me, like, what is a typical encounter, or is there even such thing as a typical encounter on a tour?
No, I wouldn't say a typical encounter. No.
Okay.
No. Sometimes people get a feeling. Sometimes they'll hear an internal voice. People have had phantom smells. But which that's a pretty common thing. Actually,
maybe you know the smell, or maybe the day that my computer shattered, in the doorway to the room where it happened, I smelled a bonfire. It was raining outside.
Yeah.
There was no fire, no candles lit in my house.
Yeah.
And I ran and got Brandon. He came down to the basement to see if something was on fire. I smelled a full-on bonfire.
Yeah. And it was so,
I have goosebumps now thinking about it, because I forget about that actually a lot. But taking me back to that moment, I was like, I smell a fire.
Yeah, that's the phantom scents are really, really fascinating.
It was crazy.
Because that's, our sense of smell is closest tied to memory. So if these ghosts, if there's any thought that they might be operating through a collective unconsciousness, that coming forward as a scent is really, I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
That's, and when those happen, they're undoubtable.
No one could tell me I wasn't smelling.
And it's
and he could smell it too.
He could smell it. Okay.
Yeah, he could.
Sometimes only one person can smell these things, and that's really
so it's really happening just to that individual.
That's happened on occasion. One of our stops, there's a gentleman whose cigar smoke can be picked up sometimes, and I've had sold out tours where there's 17 people crammed in this tiny little space, and only one person smells it before they know that that's even a thing there.
Wow.
So that's it's,
I wonder how a ghost chooses just the one lucky person that gets to
I don't know
experience them.
If there's a certain cologne you can wear that makes you more attractive to the
or is
other
it
side.
Do you think that is there obviously I'm sure you get a lot of skeptics that come through these tours. Is it easier for someone who's open to spirits to have an experience versus a skeptic?
Well, I think quite often, people who are open to it tend to have more experiences. But we have had people before that have come on the tour that have been dragged along with their significant other, and they're really not into ghosts at all. But we do provide a lot of history content on our tour, so that usually keeps them snagged in. But there have been times where people walk away like, oh my gosh, I came into this not believing in this stuff whatsoever, and walked away a believer, you know. So, and we've just recently started doing ghost hunts as well in some locations in downtown Columbus. And
so, what would you say is the difference between what's a ghost hunt versus a ghost tour?
Okay, so a ghost tour is we visit spaces where people have had paranormal experiences, and we tell the history and then these personal ghost stories, sort of like this, but as a walking, experience. And the ghost hunts, there are different ways of doing paranormal investigations. One is biased, where you already know the history and the ghost stories and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And another is where you go in blind. Now, for amateurs, I think it's best to do a biased ghost tour. So our ghost hunts, we basically tell the history and the ghost stories, and then we give people equipment and teach them how to use it and let them try to communicate with the other side.
What kind of tools do you use in your ghost hunts?
For the ghost hunts, we use the EMF readers, as I mentioned, the electromagnetic field readers. We have dowsing rods, which are quite often very useful and reactive for ghost hunts, and that we use laser grids. Sometimes
Oh,
people
yeah.
say that they'll see figures
Yeah,
walk through
we
those.
had when Amy Bolesky was here, she had a laser grid up on my wall. It was interesting.
Yeah, we'll use those. Cat balls.
So she had those too.
Yeah,
That's so funny. I was just about to ask you that, or if
Yeah.
that was a very niche Amy Bolesky thing.
No,
but-
no, there are
Okay.
actually a lot of people get
Yeah, we had the
some
cat balls.
pretty strong reaction with those things, and
Yeah.
and then there's also Ghost Box that it cycles through the FM or AM frequencies, and sometimes you'll hear words with
So
that.
you've caught a ghost on camera?
Yes, I have.
You have?
Yeah, I have.
Through a ghost tour or personally?
Personally.
Oh, tell me.
So yeah, this is a 2015. I was at the Mansfield Reformatory. And
Okay.
It was in May. It was the middle of the afternoon, and I was the only one in solitary confinement cell block. I was the only person
Oh my gosh,
there.
this would be so cool.
And it's the middle of the afternoon,
Okay.
and I'm just walking down. I don't know if you've been to the reformatory before.
No, I would love to.
Yeah, you really should go.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm walking down the solitary confinement cell block, get to one end, and I turn the corner to come back the other side. And the very first cell, I get this really strange feeling about it. Mm-hmm. And there have been people beaten to death in solitary confinement and stuff. So I pull out my camera and I start to take some photos of this particular cell. And I never have my flash on my camera. I just don't. And
Okay.
Whenever I went to take the pictures, my flash started activating, which was strange. But then it was picking up a mist. Again, it was this misty form like I had experienced as a teenager.
Yeah.
So I started recording, and I have video of this mist moving past the camera. And at the time, the only television show that had investigated the Mansfield Reformatory was Ghost Hunters, the original one with
yeah.
Grant and Jason, the plumbers. And I'm not a big fan of those shows a lot of times.
Yeah.
You know? But I went ahead and watched their episode out of curiosity, and the one spot where they caught evidence was
You
at
did?
that exact same
No
spot.
way.
Yeah, so I was like, that's kind of
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so it's it's a bit of reformatory. I highly recommend it. Yeah, it's a
They do public tours or
yes, they do, and you can just do a day tour by yourself, a self-guided tour. So
Okay.
it's which is what I was doing when that happened. And
So it's true then, like ghosts don't just come out at night.
oh no,
They're
no.
out all the time.
No, yeah, they're active at all times.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's
People just like feel spookier doing stuff at night.
yeah,
but-
they do.
Yeah.
But so there's some great stories of people having experiences in broad daylight that I, mentioning the boathouse at Confluence Park. One of the managers, because they're very active in the daytime there, was coming to open one morning, and he heard the sound of children giggling and a ball bouncing from one of the ballrooms. It's a very large space, which is a lot of different ballrooms, and he assumed some children had broken in and were playing, and he was going to go catch them. So he walked down the hall to this ballroom, and the door to the ballroom was closed, and on the other side he could very clearly hear the ball bouncing and children giggling. And as soon as he put his hand on the door handle, all of a sudden he heard a shh, and then everything went silent, and he threw the door open, and the room was empty. So
If he had just opened the door and it had been empty, it would have been like creepy enough. But the fact that they knew he was coming, they were like, shh.
yeah, and that
Oh
was
my gosh, full body chills.
and that was a morning thing,
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah.
Have you ever had so I have a lot of users that send me in their stories, and I get like very casual ghost stories, but then in between I get random like demonic stories.
Yeah.
Have you ever encountered like a very negative experience or entity?
I really try not to frame the afterlife like that. But there have been a few things I've been made privy to that were quite strange. One in particular, in 2020, we did an investigation and a tour at the Brownella Cottage in Galion, Ohio, which this was it's called a cottage, but it's actually a huge house, and it was built in 1885 for a guy named William Montgomery Brown. He was the first person excommunicated by the Episcopal Church since the Middle Ages because he turned into a communist and
Solid.
So this house, he died in his bed in 1937 on Halloween in the house, and And it was considered so haunted. There's a high school right next to it that it sat empty. No high school students would try to sneak in or break a window or anything because they were so frightened by this place. So
Oh my gosh.
So it sat for over 50 years, completely preserved.
Oh my gosh.
And now the Historical Society has possession of it, and so you can do tours and ghost hunts and stuff.
Okay.
And at the end of our tour, the guides who conduct ghost investigations, they started showing us some evidence and playing some evidence for us. And there was one EVP, electric voice phenomenon, that was captured going into the basement from the kitchen that just gave me the chills. I wasn't expecting
I
it.
have goosebumps. I don't even know what you're going to say yet. I have
It
goosebumps.
was a couple people, women who were going down the stairs into the basement, and you can hear them talking, and they're just being pretty jovial and stuff. And then all of a sudden, it sounds like it's right against the microphone, there's this gruff male voice that says, "You're mine now." And was not. I was not prepared for that, and that certainly sounds demonic to me, And and the fact that it was in a excommunicated bishop's residence, So, yeah, that was a.
I can't even imagine being those women. Like, did they listen to that when they were done? Well,
afterwards, yeah. So,
but nothing happened.
Nothing happened, but it was clear as day.
Oh my! I'm gonna have to like shave my legs again because my leg hair is growing back for this conversation.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah, it was really scary. Yeah, but for the most part, though, a lot of
would you go there alone? In the dark.
I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty creepy place.
Oh
but and pretty active too. So I mean, I don't know if I'd be comfortable in there by myself at night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so scary.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but like I said, for the most part, I try to think we're so conditioned by TV shows and movies and stuff to think that if you've got a ghost, then they're malicious and they're out to get you and that sort of thing. And that's not usually the case.
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of people, like your neighbor,
right. Margaret. She's a nice lady.
Was perfectly lovely, and dying doesn't transform them into some monster. So but that said, whenever I started doing the tours, I became aware that, I heard once you start really delving into this stuff and focusing on a lot, you can you can attract ghosts that, they're drawn towards you, and you start having other experiences. And right after I started doing the tours, I started having things happen in my house. And the first was I was writing a story I would write back then on Facebook to just keep people engaged and do little bits of history and some of the ghost stories. And I was home alone in my living room writing a story. And as soon as I hit enter to upload it, I had a remote control, like a 4-wheel drive monster truck thing.
Oh,
toy.
we've got lots of those here.
Yeah,
I've got a 3-year-old.
Yeah, you got a 3-year-old. So but someone had given me this thing like a couple years earlier, and I just set it in the corner of the living room in case they showed up and saw that it's still out. But
I didn't give your gift away.
Yeah, but I never touched it. I'm a grown man. I'm not going to be playing with a
interesting
remote.
gift for someone to give a grown man.
Yeah, but so.
I mean, I'll take it.
But so it had been sitting there for 2 years. I'm sure the batteries had to be dead and everything. But as soon as I hit send on this story, that thing went across the living room. And I was kind of like Sylvester the cat almost, in the ceiling. I jumped so much.
Yeah.
And then it was a couple days after that, I went to take a shower. I was home alone again. And whenever I got out of the shower, this is another shower story, but my towel was completely soaked. Like it had just been like dunked in water.
Gosh.
And it was across the room from where the shower is. Yeah. So that was kind of strange. And then it was not long after that, I used to be a smoker. I woke up and I went outside to have a cigarette in the morning, and I stretched and I looked up, and on the porch ceiling, which is around 12 feet up, there was a paw print, a large paw print.
Paw print?
Yeah, which was really...
Not a hand?
No, a paw. It's, it was really, really quite strange. So,
like, what was the print in? Like dirt?
Yeah. Again, if you want a link in the show notes, I can send you the picture.
Yes, we'll have all of these somewhere.
Yeah. So it was that was kind of strange. But then I realized, like, doing this type of thing, I didn't want to bring my work home with me, so I started getting really good at guarding, myself against against whenever strange things would happen. Although we have started doing ghost hunts as part of our business recently, and
I want to do a ghost hunt
yeah,
with you.
yeah, we've got some. We've got exclusive access to some historic places in downtown
we could do
Columbus.
like a whole YouTube video. Like,
Oh, yeah.
It would be so cool.
Yeah, yeah, and we've just started doing those, and we've gotten some interesting responses on some of them.
Well, everyone always says Ohio's so haunted. Ohio's so haunted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there a reason for that?
Well, 2,000 years ago, this was Mecca for the indigenous people of the United States and North America. Like, people traveled thousands of miles here to bury their dead and participate in ceremonies.
Okay. Like, in a cemetery versus like a haunted house, are experiences different, one more than another?
The experiences I've had in cemeteries, and I did write on Cemeteries of Ohio, I'm not sure if you're aware, for the History Press. So I got to spend a lot of the COVID lockdown in cemeteries all over the state of Ohio that are reputedly haunted. Yeah. The experiences in the cemetery seem to be more subtle for the most part.
Okay.
But experiences in buildings and that sort of thing, there are different types of hauntings, so you can get a variety of experiences versus a cemetery where those tend to be an intelligent haunting, I think, but they're a lot more subtle and they're quieter and it's more like a whisper than a scream.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but we have had some fascinating, one of the more compelling things that I've had happen in recent times. There was a couple from Granville, Ohio, that's around 45 minutes east of Columbus, and they came on one of my day tours at Green Lawn Cemetery, and I asked them.
I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's the second largest cemetery in the state of Ohio, and yeah, we do day tours and night tours there. And I asked them if they'd been to Green Lawn before, and they said, yeah, we came here a couple years ago and just drove around, did our own little exploration. And the lady said, I think I got a picture of a ghost. And she pulled out her phone and began zooming in on a photograph she had taken of a mausoleum. And in one of the windows, it very clearly looks like a man looking out, and he's got a goatee and a very prominent nose. Sometimes whenever people get these window photographs of faces, they're not proportionally accurate. It would be a head that's only like an inch or two, or it'd be like a 3-foot tall face.
Yeah.
But the administrator for the cemetery, we opened the family crypt. It was a private family crypt, and she went in and determined, yeah, this was indeed proportionate for like a 6-foot tall person. Oh, wow. And I started doing research on the family that's buried there.
Right.
And the patriarch of the family, he died in 1932, and there's a photograph of him with the obituary, and it's the same face. It's the same guy.
Like 100%.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just there's no denying it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's undeniable.
What do you, so I also, like in my last episode, I was talking about how there's some ghost stories that get submitted that can be explained away. Mm-hmm. And then there's some to me that there's no denying it.
Yeah.
What do you think if you have, I guess, a story that sticks out to you that is the most undeniable like experience that would change any non-believer?
Okay, well, I would say that photograph in particular is one that really stands out. There's there's one location that we visit and where we conduct ghost investigations. Whenever the current owner's employees started reporting activity and seeing apparitions and that sort of thing, they were skeptics, the owners, so they began reviewing the security cameras. And they noticed that quite often the security cameras, which were motion activated, this was in 2012, they would pick up, they would turn on in the middle of the night and pick up this ball of light that would move around through the space and then go through a doorway and then turn off. And orbs, people have a lot of different with that, but now this space, it does have, it's on the first floor of this building. It has windows and there's an alley right outside it, so there's automobile traffic. And the guy thought,
could be a car.
Headlights going through, that wouldn't set off a motion activated camera, but what if it's a fruit fly or some sort of insect like that?
And that's caught in the light.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing. What changed his mind, what made is really sort of the undeniable thing. One morning he was reviewing the security cameras, and there's a room in the basement. The security camera turned on, and there are no windows down there where car lights would illuminate a flying insect.
Right.
But there was this ball of light that moved around through the room for a little bit, and then it stopped. And it went into the ceiling, and the camera turned off downstairs. The camera turned on upstairs, and it came through the floor. And then it went through the space for a little while, and then the doorway again where it would always go. And
oh my gosh.
Cameras turn off. Yeah, so that's kind of a, how do you explain that?
Yeah.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really compelling one, I think.
Yeah. I told a story last week where someone's grandpa had pulled up to the house, and he saw a woman in pink pajamas in the window. And he goes in the house, but his grandson's wife was at work. So he starts questioning his grandson, like thinking that he's cheating
Yeah.
on his wife. He's like,
Yeah.
what's going on? I just saw a woman in pink pajamas like in the window. And
Yeah.
he made him search the whole house to prove that there was no one hiding in there. And then the wife comes home and they're telling him the story. And the grandfather would have had no way of knowing this, but her mom had passed away in the house in pink pajamas.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's,
to me,
yeah.
there's no denying that.
Yeah.
It's not like a coincidental.
No, that's, yeah, it's all the details are there. Yeah.
Like this grandpa had no way of knowing that this girl's mom had passed away in that house in pink pajamas.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, that stuff is those are the moments where your hair really does stand on end because there's no way to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just fascinating. I had a woman on a tour ask me several years ago, like, do people ever see ghosts and not realize it and think that they're just
that's
an
cool.
actual living person? And yeah, that happens from time to time. But then she explained to me that it had just been a short time earlier before she told me this story. She had been doing a fundraiser in her neighborhood, and she was going house to house and collecting donations. And she went to this one particular neighbor, and it was a woman. She opened the door and said, "Well, here, wait in the living room while I go to the kitchen and get my checkbook, and I'll be back." So while the woman's who's collecting the donations is standing in the living room, she said there's this man sitting in a lazy boy. She presumed it's the woman's husband, and he just looked at her, and then he just turned and looked at the TV and didn't say a word. And she said it was really uncomfortable and awkward. And then the other woman came out of the kitchen with the check, and she thanked her and went home. And that night, the woman who collected the donations was telling her husband, like, I met the neighbor's husband, and boy, is he rude. And her husband said, "What are you talking about? That guy died 2 years ago." And
Oh my gosh.
he was like, "Think about it. Have you ever seen anyone other than her raking the leaves and
leaves and
mowing the
mowing
lawn and all that?"
Snow
And
plowing.
yeah. So she was like, "Oh wow, I
Oh
saw a
my
ghost." So
gosh.
that's one of those things too. The sort of hair stand on end moments.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I had a particularly personal experience that I had at Moonville Tunnel. I don't know if you're familiar with the legend of Moonville. It's in near MacArthur, Ohio, in a forest just a little south of Hocking Hills, and Zelensky State Forest. And it was a mining town for a very brief period in the 1800s, and by 1900 there hardly anybody lived there. But this tunnel, it's a railroad tunnel, goes through the mountain and it curves a bit, and because of that, there have been many deaths. It's a ghost town now. There's nothing left of it other than this tunnel that says Moonville over the top of it. And and an enormous number of people have died in that tunnel, even given that it was a small town that never had a population of more than 50 or so. Well, in 2019, I was writing an article for Columbus Underground on the cave ghost of Hocking Hills.
Oh.
And I thought about possibly including tunnel ghosts. So this one particular night, I'm in the area near Moonville, and it's a full moon. And I thought, if I could get a photograph of the full moon raising over Moonville Tunnel, that would be a great shot for the article. So drove out to Moonville and got there around 11 o'clock at night. And the park is closed then, so there's no one is supposed to be there. And when I pull into the parking lot across from the tunnel, there's a vehicle, and it says Wrath Chasers or something like that. It was a ghost hunters group, And I was like, great, they're going to be in the tunnel, and they're going to ruin my shot and all this. But I'm all the way out here, just as well go ahead and try it. And so I hike back to this tunnel and don't see anybody. And I'm like, great, there must be somewhere else. So I set up my tripod and camera and start to take a long exposure and start to hear the sound of someone walking down the side of the hill to the right. And I can't turn a light on, a flashlight or anything until the camera's done.
Oh, right.
And it's kind of nerve-wracking, but I assumed it was probably the ghost hunters.
Right.
And finally the camera finishes. I turn the light on. There's no one there. I go to do another photograph, and I start to hear it walking down the left side of the tunnel, or the hill from the tunnel. And again, once the camera finishes, I turn the light on. There's nobody there. Then on another attempted photo, start getting pebbles thrown at us.
No way!
And could hear them just like right at my feet. And
oh my God!
After that, I was like, okay, someone can see me, but I can't see them. And I thought maybe it was ghost hunters and they had night vision goggles
like they were messing with
They're just trying to mess with me. Yeah, that sort of thing. So I
that gave me goosebumps.
so I pack up and go back to my car. And whenever I'm turning around in the parking lot to leave, my lights hit the back of this ghost hunter's vehicle, and it's up on jacks. It's disabled, so there was no one there with us, and and that was one of those like
That's like a aha moment of
yeah,
like,
when you're in the middle of nowhere and you think someone's messing with you, and then you find out that you were all alone.
oh.
Yeah, and so I mentioned this to a friend who makes Ouija boards, and she had just done an event at Moonville in October. They have a
Have
festival.
you ever used a Ouija board?
Yes, we have used Ouija boards on our ghost hunts sometimes too. And I mentioned this to her, and because she had just done an event at Moonville, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you met Baldy Keaton," and I was like, "Baldy Keaton, who's that?" And began doing research. Yeah, and there's this guy. He was there was a saloon in Moonville in 1886. He got in a bar fight with these guys and was thrown out, and then the guys that he'd been fighting snuck out, and they killed him, and then they placed him on the track. So
oh my gosh, so it looked like
to cover the murder. Yeah,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And his ghost is said to hang out at the top of the tunnel and throw pebbles at people. And I was like, well, that's
oh my god,
wild. Yeah, I had the experience before learning the story. Yeah, so yeah. That was
my gosh. So what if you had heard that story before? Would you have like shit your pants and like ran out of there?
Yeah, if I well, I mean, I knew that the place was haunted, so
right.
but I didn't know about that specific ghost. Yeah. So once, I mean, I was unnerved enough once the pebbles started landing by my feet, that I was like, okay, someone can see me and I can't see them.
Do you still get goosebumps thinking of these things? Probably not to the severity that I have them right now.
At this point, not as much, yeah, but
really?
But I mean, because it's happened a long time ago now, and I can sort of just, if something were to happen again, in the moment, they certainly.
So it still like freaks you out.
Yeah,
you're not like completely just immune to it.
No.
Okay.
No, I can still get quite freaked out. There's some spaces that, certain buildings that really give me.
Yeah. Would
chills.
you say that Asylum was one of the
or the Mansfield Reformatory?
Yeah.
It's
up there with creepiest places.
It's a pretty creepy one. It's a very active one. I was ghost shivved there once.
Shivved? What does that mean?
I was doing an event there. Several years back, and had to be there really early on a Sunday morning. And several of the horrific bits of its history that are said to result in ghost stories happened on a Sunday morning. There was a woman named Helen Glatke. She was a warden's wife. She was getting ready for church one Sunday morning, and she was reaching for a hat box, and there was a gun on top of it, and it fell and shot her. And
oh my gosh!
She died, and then there was a inmate who had been beaten to death in the skull, had their skull bashed in with a weight in the church chapel there. So I was
in the chapel.
Yeah, so on a Sunday morning. So I was wandering around exploring because I was there by myself on an early Sunday morning, and I was walking down a cell block, and all of a sudden I got this sharp stabbing pain in my side.
Even in the afterlife, they're still like fucking people
up.
Yeah,
gotcha. Yeah, and I was. I mean, it's not my appendix. I've still got that. So it was just this. It was really weird, and I was like, "Did I just get ghost shivved?" I mean, I don't know, but.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was a.
I mean, they're staying true to themselves. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So I didn't.
Oh my gosh, that's kind of fun. I feel like that would have scared me at first. Then I would have gotten in the car and I probably would have laughed. I would have been like, "Did that just happen?"
Well, I had to do an event there, so I was there all day. So I was just like, just process it and move on. Sometimes that's the thing about doing my tours, and more so than the investigations, because if I'm doing this stuff, I just have to keep moving. I can't stop. And whenever these things
have you ever had someone leave a tour because they're so scared?
I've had people leave spaces because they were so scared. And this is pre-COVID, we did bus tours, and we are starting to do them again now. But so they were on a bus tour. There was no way they could just, they could have gotten an Uber or something. But I've had people run out of spaces before, because they've gotten too bad of a creepy of a feeling.
Wow.
So yeah.
Have you ever taken on a ghost's emotions?
I personally haven't. I tried to, like I said, I think anybody can be empathic if you really flex that muscle, it'll grow. But I particularly I really try to keep all that stuff at an arm's length, like I said, because I don't like it coming home with me.
Right.
So I personally haven't really experienced that.
Okay. I have.
You have?
So when we did this whole thing in my basement with Margaret, we were sitting there and Amy wanted me to talk to her. She was kind of like, so Amy's the psychic.
Yes.
She was doing all the talking and I was just kind of sitting there listening and experiencing it with her. And she was like, she was originally communicating with you. You should try to talk to her. So I was like, oh my God, okay. So I started talking to her and I started talking about her house. So Margaret was a hoarder. So she never left her house. And so when she passed away, and she didn't have a lot of family close to her. So when she passed away, she had been in her house for a while before she was found. Yeah. And apparently my neighbors have told me that she was found. And then like 10 minutes after the coroner leaves, I pulled in because we were buying this house.
Oh, okay.
So she passes away and then they find her body as I move in. And so basically I think the world thinks that she kind of had like a connection to my house, my family. Like we came as she left.
Yeah. You're fresh.
Yeah. So, and then her house gets boarded up. There was a ton of water damage. So her house was completely destroyed. Like I used to creep in her windows all the time because I felt this like draw to her house constantly. And the ceiling of the second floor had fallen in. Like her house was just, it's a goner. It's going to have to get torn down probably.
Demolished,
And so the day my computer shatters is the day that her house gets boarded up. So fast forward, I'm sitting here in the basement with Amy Bolesky and we're talking to her and I start talking about her house. And mind you, like I can sit here and say to you, I don't give a shit about this woman's house. Like it doesn't mean anything to me. As we're talking about it, I'm like bawling about the house.
Yeah.
And like I get goosebumps thinking about it because I could logically say, I know that I'm not sad.
Yeah.
But like I'm crying.
Yeah, but you can't help it. Yeah.
It was the weirdest. And like afterwards, that was the only way I could explain it. It was like Margaret was crying through me. And I don't know if that's a thing.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is.
It was so weird.
I mean, I told you I have never really had that experience myself, but I did have a kind of a little bit similar in at Brownella Cottage that I mentioned earlier. The people who were guiding our tour there, one of them, he asked me if I was sensitive, and I said, well, yeah, but I try to keep that, to a minimum. And he brought me into the mother-in-law's bedroom, and there was a space in between a dresser and a wall, and he told me to put my hand there, and this electricity ran up my arm, like through my body, and it was the strangest thing. And I said, what is that? And he said, that's her. That's where she resides. And I started crying, and I didn't, and it wasn't, so it was, I thought for me, it felt like it was just, I wasn't expecting that experience and how
it was like, it just shocked her system.
Yeah. And so I don't feel like I was taking on her emotions of the mother-in-law, but it did give me that instant, so I can relate to that unexpected crying with that, but that's so strange that you didn't feel any sadness, but yet it was.
No, it was when I talked about her house being destroyed.
Yeah.
As soon as I would talk about her house being completely ruined, I started crying.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I stopped talking about it, I wasn't crying anymore.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was looking at Amy, I was like, I swear I don't care about her house.
Yeah.
I've never met this person.
Yeah.
It means nothing to me.
Yeah.
And I'm crying about it.
Yeah. And yet you're, having that visceral reaction. So
it was so strange.
That really is,
It was pretty cool. Like the whole thing is like something that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And I've never been I've never experienced anything. And I'm the most open to it in my family. And yet things have happened to my sister. My mom and my sister actually saw the same ghost on the same day. And we didn't realize it till like 20 years later.
Okay.
It was actually really cool.
That's interesting.
Do you want to hear the story?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Please do. Yeah. Please share.
So my sister wakes up. We have bunk beds. My sister wakes up and she sees what she thinks is me standing in the doorway. And my sister will love the fact that I'm telling this story as if it's my own, because I always do this. I love this story and I always tell it. But I was asleep the whole time. So she sees this girl standing in the doorway. She thinks it's me. She's calling out to me. I'm not answering. And finally she looks over the bunk bed and I'm asleep in the bed.
Yeah.
And she realizes it is not me at all. And so she goes under the covers, eventually falls back asleep. And we are telling my mom this story 15 years later, because we were 6, 7, like we were really young when it happened. And somehow we never told my mom. But my sister specifically remembered that we were going to SeaWorld the next day. And because it was one of those nights where it's like the night before Christmas and you're so excited.
Yeah, anxious,
Yeah, so she specifically remembers that. And so we're telling my mom at like a family function years later, and my mom's face just goes pale. And my mom says that she saw her too the night before we went to SeaWorld, standing in the doorway. And my mom almost took it as an omen because she also thought it was me.
Yeah.
almost took it as an omen that something bad was going to happen. So she almost canceled our trip, which is why she remembers it.
Yeah.
So not until 15 years later did we put together that my mom and my sister saw the same girl on the same night.
So do you have any idea who that might be?
So we lived right next to a graveyard. So from my bedroom window, we could see the graveyard. So who freaking knows? It could be anybody.
Yeah.
And so then I post this story on TikTok, and my childhood friend messages me, and she's like, hey, you remember like sometimes my mom would have to come pick me up, and then I just stopped sleeping over. She's like, I would see her in your house. And I just didn't say anything. So now there's been 3 people to confirm
that have seen this girl.
And I never saw her. And like, I'm sitting here like begging for it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, only the nice ones.
So sometimes the watch pot never boils with that. Yeah. So now with Margaret, like, do you feel that maybe is there going to be any effort to get her to move on, or are you?
So that's pretty much what happened that night,
Okay.
and it was actually crazy. So we had the what did you call the
laser grid?
Yes. So we had the laser grid up, and it was like warm, and then it all got blue. And Amy was like, I've never seen anything like this. And so we're talking to her, and so Amy thinks, and since that day, nothing weird has ever happened in my house. She thinks that we helped her.
Transition.
Yeah. And like that's what this whole the rug and like the dog sitting and all this crazy shit that happened was all just to help Margaret. Like she basically was the orchestrator of all of it.
Yeah. She was.
And nothing weird has happened since.
Yeah.
And I also don't feel the draw to her house anymore. Like I don't even look at it anymore.
Yeah.
Randomly, I'll look at it and I'll think, "Wow, I haven't even looked at this house in a while," and I feel nothing to the house anymore.
Yeah. So that's really wild. So so she definitely did have a connection to you. It seems like. Yeah. Wow.
And nothing since, because people are always asking me like, "Do you still have anything weird happening at the house?" Nothing.
Yeah, well, that's good. And then,
Yeah.
but maybe doing this, you might, like I said, you know,
wake something up.
You might bring something on a couple of the places since we just started doing the ghost hunts at a couple of different establishments. Some of the owners have been a little reticent, like, you know, please don't.
Don't wake anything up that's not working already.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so.
Oh my gosh. Well, I 100% want to do a ghost hunt with you. Like, we'll have to figure that out. I think it would be so fun.
Yeah.
I love all this stuff. I think probably nothing like really scary has ever happened. Maybe if something scary happens, I may love it a little less. But I am such a fan of like all things spooky. I just adore it. I think it's so interesting. And I believe in it like wholeheartedly.
Oh yeah.
So we will have to get a ghost hunt. We'll do it on YouTube. We'll do a whole nother episode. It would be so fun.
Yeah, we can pick out someplace really
we'll go
really
somewhere
interesting.
Super spooky.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that would be amazing. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
This was so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And
oh my gosh. So do you want to tell them how they can tour with you?
So to book with Columbus Ghost Tours, you can go to www.columbusghosttours.com and select. We do day tours at Greenlawn Cemetery, night tours. We're the only person or group in the cemetery's 176 year history now who's allowed to bring the public in after the gates are closed. You get locked in and you wander through and hear some of the ghost stories, which is a thrilling experience. And then we have our Booze and Booze, our historic tavern tours. And,
amazing.
They're a lot of fun. And downtown walking tours as well, and a few other things. And now we have quite a few different paranormal investigations that are locations that we're starting up. So
so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'll have a link to the website so that you guys can grab it on there.
Yep.
So awesome.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Katie.
This is great.
Look forward to the ghost hunt.
Yes.